On March 19th, artists Amy Alexander and Annina Rüst debuted Discotrope, The Secret Life of Solar Cells, at the gallery at Cal IT 2. Alexander and Rüst have collaborated with Cristyn Magnus, a music PhD graduate from UC San Diego, to create a visual and auditory performance system that looks at first glance like a regular disco ball. Like any disco ball, the Discotrope is covered in mirrored facets. When rotated, these little mirrors reflect light onto the walls and ceiling of a darkened room. Upon closer inspection, however, the Discotrope does look a little unusual. Along its equator, the mirrors have a different hue. That's because some of the faces are not mirrors at all. They are actually solar cells. Amy Alexander, one of the Discotrope's creators, is Associate Professor of Visual Arts at the University of California, San Diego.
There's a solar-powered disco ball, which means that it's a disco ball with which we've replaced some of the mirrors with little solar cells, and we point video projectors at it, which is really not an efficient use of solar power from a technology point of view, because obviously video projectors use lots of energy. But what we're using them for is aesthetic purposes, to create this projection device which becomes this cinematic tool or visual performance instrument.
The Discotrope is not just powered by simple ultraviolet light, as are your typical voltaic cells. Instead, Alexander and Rüst project video clips of people dancing onto the ball. These video clips are then reflected off of the Discotrope and onto the performance space.
The idea is we got interested in what we call the history of people dancing at cameras. In early like silent films, for example, like the Thomas Edison films, people kind of danced looking straight at the camera because cinema at that time was taken from vaudeville. I mean, they hadn't really developed narrative language yet. So it was kind of this shots where everybody was kind of looking straight at the camera. And so these performances were very much like stage shows, people dancing directly at the camera. But interestingly, when YouTube became popular, this phenomenon of people dancing straight for the camera like they did in, back in vaudeville, or in vaudeville, of course, they didn't have a camera, but in the old movies, that kind of got revived. And so we found that was an interesting trajectory also because it's kind of a more intimate relationship between the performer and the audience, because they're looking straight at the camera, really kind of performing straight for the camera. So we kind of wanted to illustrate that trajectory through the choice of clips in Discotrope.
Alexander's collaborator, Annina Rüst, is Assistant Professor of Transmedia at Syracuse University.
We want to use the solar cells for aesthetic purposes, right? So that they, that they create a certain effect, that they move a certain way. And so it's a completely different field in a way. We're trying to do something completely different than what typically engineers try to do when they have solar cells.
Alexander and Rüst produce unique visuals by using software developed to control the brightness of the video clips and therefore the speed of the Discotrope.
The light powers the motor that rotates the ball. The more light comes from the video, whether it's a brighter video or I'm adjusting light through software, the faster the ball will rotate. And conversely, if there's less light coming from the video or from my software, the ball will slow down. So the reason for doing that is you get the reflections that are on the wall from the video sources will change speed. And so you get this interesting choreography, we think, between the videos themselves and the way they're moving around the space.
After its premiere at the gallery at Cal IT 2, the Discotrope is headed for performances out in the world.
We will play different venues. We want to play outdoor shows, indoor shows, because we're also interested in it as, for example, as public art.
The Discotrope is headed beyond the indoor art gallery. In the future, the artists plan to adapt the performance for parking lots, backyards, and spaces of various shapes and sizes.
Down,